This is Flint, and you're listening to G.I. Joe Chronicles.
The LONGBOX CRUSADE presents
G.I. Joe Chronicles.
Don't they realize they're dealing with Destro?
When I'm through Scuzz Bucket, they're gonna scrape you off the walls with a squeegee.
Now stop sputtering like a wet toaster and get busy!
Welcome to G.I. Joe Chronicles. I'm one of your commanders, Pat Sampson, codename DJ Kristatos, and joining me as always is my battle buddy in this operation, and that is Jarrod codename Death Probe.
That is a prescription for danger.
At Easy DJ Kristatos and to all the green shirts tuning in for this podcast, I want to welcome everybody back to Fort Longbox. We appreciate you tuning in to talk some G.I. Joe comics with us as we chronicle our way through G.I. Joe Special Missions by Marvel on this episode. Next episode, we will return to our coverage of G.I. Joe America's Elite, but for this episode, we are back in the 80s, 1986 specifically, with Special Missions. I think the most important thing to mention right up front is that we are just going to be looking, we're doing G.I. Joe 50, but this is our Special Missions coverage. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to be looking at the Special Missions backup story in 50. Some people might be upset because we're not going to cover the sweet Serpentor flying kick that happens in issue 50. I just want to know, everybody know that we're aware of that and that it exists and that it's awesome. But we're going to just look at the backup story. I'm kind of talking to some super secret people who are watching us record live right now. That's one of the Crusaders Club benefits at patreon.com/longboxcrusade. We have a few folks that have joined us for this live recording that you can only get via our Patreon page. We appreciate you guys being here. You may hear some of their comments. We may read some of their comments during this recording. So our special guest for this episode is super secret people in the chat. Over to you, Pat, for the intelligence report.
All right, Jarrod. For this mission, we will be covering G.I. Joe number 50, but we'll be covering the second story in this big issue. It is the Special Missions story that they had, and it is called The Best Defense. Publisher for this was Marvel. It had a cover date of August 1986. Writer was Larry Hama. Penciler, Herb Trimpe. Inker, Herb Trimpe as well. Colors is Bob Sharon. And letters go to P. Felix. The cover art goes to none, because there isn't a cover for this one, because it is part of issue 50 from the main G.I. Joe. And speaking about the cover, Death Probe, please take us through the cover description of sorts, because we're going to look at the house ads that preceded the Special Mission story.
Take cover!
That's right, Pat. There was a house ad involved, and I will describe it for you. And it's advertising Special Missions. Okay. This house ad has the G.I. Joe Special Missions logo in red with black highlights, and it depicts items laying on what's presumably a table. And the items are a top secret mission file, a grenade, a suppressed submachine gun, 3 bullets, and a picture of a hooded figure with a knife stabbed into it. Its advertising copy reads, "Coming soon, the stories that couldn't be told. Until now, G.I. Joe Special Missions. Every issue, a pulse-pounding new adventure featuring a handful of trained combat specialists, members of the elite G.I. Joe force, doing the jobs too dirty for anyone else. The jobs only the Joes can do. It's the comic spectacular you've been hoping for. On sale June 12th. Watch for it."
I guess I'm looking for that ad, but I don't have it in here.
It's just a house ad that they used.
Really? Weird.
It may not be in 50. It may have been in some other Joe stuff or whatever, but I actually sent the ad to Beatty and asked him if he knew who drew it, and he did not.
That's weird, because that's in yours.
The difference here is what you're seeing there. The picture I took is from the IDW, the hardback. So they included that ad as like the cover. Okay. It's an old ad that didn't necessarily run in this issue. It ran in other comics to advertise for.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was confused for a moment there. I'm like, oh, wow.
I'll square you away. It's all right. Folks would probably want to know that. Folks might be looking in their 50 going, where's this ad?
That's what I was doing.
Well, we've got it all ironed out.
It is a cool ad.
It's a house ad. And I didn't put it in 50 unless it's something.
I do remember seeing that ad. Now that I'm looking at it, I do remember seeing that ad in other issues. So
yeah,
really cool
it definitely
ad.
looks familiar to me as well.
Mm-hmm. Looks really cool. You know, what gives me a kind of a James Bondy kind of vibe off of it, doesn't it?
It does. You know, it's very 1985, 6.
86, yeah.
86, because like feels like Bond. It kind of feels like Commando, the Schwarzenegger film. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like
so yeah, it's funny that I read this issue 50 via my IDW collected hardcovers, because I only read things in hardcovers, Pat, because everything else is disgusting. My IDW, and I saw that and I was like, oh, that's cool. And the reason I read it in my IDW is like, I thought my special missions hardbound thing was just the full run of special missions. I didn't realize that I was crafty and smart enough to have included 50, which I did. I just forgot that I had it. So that's why I read it in a different format.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Well, with that, Jarrod, what else did you think about the ad?
Oh, I think it's awesome. Like we were just saying, it's so very 86. It screams G.I. Joe. It screams like Black Ops. It screams, it's got a James Bond feel. It's got that Commando Schwarzenegger feel. It's very 1980s. It's very on point with that. And I got to be honest, you know, I was about to say, if I was a kid reading this, I'd be very excited. I was a kid reading this.
Yeah,
and I was very excited.
Me too. I remember when they're like, oh, they're doing a second Joe book. Man, I'm so for this one. I'm all the way down on this one.
Oh yeah. And just that ad is just like, what? You know, it gives you enough information, but not enough information.
Yeah.
You know, you're just like, I want to know more.
It's almost too reminds me of back in the day, role-playing game kind of a stuff too. Like you'd see this for like a role-playing ad, like, you know, you too can be a Joe member and go on secret missions and do all this stuff. And that'd be cool to definitely get something like that. G.I. Joe role-playing. Well, there is now, but back then, man, I could see this selling that as well. I think with that, why don't we go ahead and find out how we would rate this house ad on a scale of 1 to 10 flag points. 1 meaning you didn't like it at all, and 10 meaning it's perfect and you should make a recruiting poster out of it. Jarrod, 1 to 10 for this ad.
Well, look at the wording of what we use. You should make a recruiting poster out of it. They're recruiting people to read this book. We just talked about how amazingly it worked on us. I'm giving it a 10.
Yo, Joe!
This advertisement is a 10. It excites me. If they made like a poster of it, I'd hang it up. If they put it on a t-shirt, I'd wear it.
Ooh, yeah.
Heck yes.
Yeah,
awesome.
I would love
give
that.
it a 10.
Oh, I'm so with you right now. When you said make this a t-shirt, I want this as a t-shirt now.
I do too. I want
this. I want that. And it's just G.I. Joe Special Missions and just that. Ooh, I got to get that. So if anybody out there that can do that for me or get me this, oh man, you'd be my special buddy. But I'm giving it a 10.
You people in the chat.
Yes. If anybody wants to bump up to the $5 level to help us get t-shirts, be very much appreciated. Just kidding. All right.
Really.
Yeah, but we wouldn't mind it. But just saying, man, if we can get a good scan of it, we could probably do something with it. I got some ideas. So if somebody got a good scan of that out there listening, let me know, get it to me somehow, and I can find a way to make this happen. Anyway, all right. Well, with the love of the house ad out of the way, let's go back to Death Probe for the story synopsis in our mission brief.
Cobra, attack!
Terrorists have hijacked a Russian airliner that contains the U.S. chess team, and they're planning on using it to wreak havoc and perhaps even ignite a war between Russia and the USA. While Hawk and Stalker go to gather intel from the terrorist group's home base in California, Flint sneaks Lady J and Beachhead onto the plane to take swift action against the villains. But the terrorist leader is a dying man with his finger on a dead man switch, ready to blow the plane to bits with all the C4 attached to his body.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
All right, Pat, it is time to talk about it. What you got, Pat? Round 1, fight.
Oh, well, I'm going to start off this with something that I really enjoyed, And you don't really see a lot of it that much anymore in newer comics. Definitely saw this a lot in the Spider-Man and the X-Men comics, kind of in that era where there was that description of kind of what the series is or what it's about or how the story began, especially on this first page. I'm just going to read it here, and I think this sets the mood and is really cool. So it goes a little something like this. There are some missions so secret, so sensitive, that even the Joes who go on them are told only the bare minimum, on a strictly need-to-know basis. As far as the other Joes are concerned, these missions never existed. These are the G.I. Joe Special Missions. I love that.
Good dramatic reading.
Yeah, so maybe you can use that and cut it up. And
Oh, I'll put some audio behind it. It's
yeah,
gonna sound good.
kind of like what I do with the Spider-Man. I thought, but I love those. I love the way that was said, and I was like, oh boy, I was so excited when I reread it again.
You know, they must have done a good job with that because, you know, normally you kind of gloss over that stuff that's printed at the top and you just get going, right?
Mhm.
I read it too. When I first cracked the book open, I was like, what's written up here? Oh, and I read the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
So it was a good little catcher there.
Yeah, I definitely love it. And what I liked about this series, you know, it just sets the mood and it sets more of that grittier, more high stakes action that's going to be happening, especially in this particular story. There's some high stakes that are going on in here. You're dealing with passengers, and then when you find out what the real, I guess, mission or objective was for the terrorists, what they were actually going to do, it's like, oh, so they're just, you know, they're not hijacking the plane for just to get away or to do something. They're actually going to do some bad stuff.
Highly reminiscent of 9/11.
Yeah.
The plane as a weapon. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Which is, you know, this is 1986 and just very interesting story on that point. But an odd, I want to say odd, but a very different take from a G.I. Joe. That's what grabbed me as well, too. You, especially with this issue being the backup story in the big 50th issue of G.I. Joe. And we have all that's going on with Cobra Island and all that. But having this just kind of come out in its own little story and be a kind of more realistic feel to it, I felt.
Yes, this is, you said grittier, and you can tell this is Larry being allowed to lean in that direction a bit more, especially with its juxtaposition, I'm going to use fancy words, with the 50 main story. Even like the art style is a little cleaner and crisper, and I'm not besmirching Herb Trimpe at all. Like, it was awesome to see Trimpe like kick off.
Yeah,
new thing, because I mean, Trimpe was the guy that kicked it all off, right?
Yep.
So
yeah, it was good to see him again.
Definitely, but his art feels a little grittier. I mean, let's talk about some
more
of the,
adult. This is more adulty.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the adult themes here. You have, by far the grittiest thing is the stewardess who gets shot.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. I'm like, oh,
right, I was like, wow. When I saw that, I was like, man, this was in a Joe comic, like a kid's comic, basically. In the 80s. Whew. I was like, dang, you know, that was rough. I mean, just the first thing I remember, because I hadn't really read this since I was a kid, Pat. I had forgotten about that. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I was like, I think this lady's going to get shot. But man, the way that it happened, I was like, dang. But the thing that I most remember was that emaciated, sick with cancer bad guy with the bomb. Okay. That's the image I remembered the most. And yeah, this really feels like, you know, we mentioned Commando earlier or Delta Force with Chuck Norris.
Delta Force, yeah.
This is really in that vein. It really is. So you've got that shot. You've got, you know, the nothing to lose terrorists that are going to use the plane as a weapon. I mean, you even have a slightly bit more adult content. And I'm snickery because every kid our age just, you know, Lady J panty shot. There's a lady.
Yeah.
Lady J panty shot. We were kids like, hee. But like as an adult now, I'm like, yeah, they were really like
Yeah,
changing this up a little bit.
Yeah, they brought it to the next level on this one with what they could do. Definitely.
We have Matt in the chat real quick. I just want to let him tag on this too. Super secret chat. Thanks for being here and being a Crusaders Club member. He said just simply they were not playing around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, and this was definitely a good seller to get you on board with these special missions. Let's talk about it. Just like the episode before this one, when we covered the first issue of America Elite, you have another small team here, which I think Larry is really good at. Once he gets these smaller teams down, and it's a more manageable team that he can do, and you get more character development, or you get a little more background on certain things, and I think the story just comes out a lot better. But as much as I like G.I. Joes, and believe me, I like them all, I really like when they do these smaller teams like that, and so you get to know them. I like that you can mix and match your Joes up for whatever is needed on the missions, and that's what they really do here. They got the right group of people to be on this team, and we got Stalker's in here again doing what he does. Yeah, it's him and Hawk, right? They go in and they take down the possibly bad cell that's on the state side that may know what's happening.
Yeah. We don't really do politics on the show, but Larry gives us kind of his little 2 cents on some of how that happens and all that. We're not going to go into it here. You can have your own personal opinions on that. Mm-hmm. But it felt like that 80s movie style where there's someone working the case from one end while, they're taking the plane back on the other end. One of my big takeaways from it was I feel like Larry either, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, I'm just guessing, but I feel like he either felt like Snake Eyes was too much of the face of G.I. Joe, so he kept him out of this one, or maybe he was just like, I'll hold Snake Eyes for other things, but he had 2 of the 3, what I call the triumvirate, which is Stalker, Hawk, and Snake Eyes, because those are the 3 that served in Nam together, and they're the ones that basically started the whole Joe team, as you read the books, right? Those are your 3, but Snake Eyes wasn't there. But who filled the Snake Eyes role in this issue, Pat?
Well, it's your buddy Beachhead, which is another
favorite Joe.
Good casting, for if you're going to have somebody like that, you're going to have Beachhead in there. And you got Flint for that just raw power that he's got, that's a no-nonsense guy. And then you got Lady J. It was all strategically planned and picked for this mission. You can just tell it because, they needed somebody to get on board. All of them are capable at what they do. But once they got in, Lady J was able to kind of make them think that she was a stewardess so she could actually, kind of get free about the cavern in order to get at the terrorists that they were there. And you see more tactical stuff going on as well, too, them trying to get to the plane, them asking, hey, where are these specs? Where are people at on this? All that intel that they had to grab in the amount of time that they did in order to pull off this mission. It's really done, I want to say, perfectly for this.
Absolutely. I'm going to check in with the chat at this point. We got Jim saying, at this point, the team was getting too large to spotlight individuals in the main title. Special missions gave Larry the opportunity to dive into smaller teams and individuals. And I wholeheartedly agree. I think it really gave Larry the ability to focus on things he wanted to focus on, things he wanted to get developed that he just couldn't due to the things that Hasbro had to have. There's a lot of advertisement going on in the main G.I. Joe story. It's still great, but yeah, I agree with Jim on that point. And then Matt chimed in and said, it kind of cracked me up that one of the terrorists looked like Zorana or Jinx in disguise. So I haven't looked at that. I need to go back and look at that. What part that cracked me up was that Lady J inserts herself as a flight attendant. Haven't they been on this plane for like hours? Like,
yeah.
And you remember the strikingly good-looking athletic flight attendant who just showed up? Hey, she's really pretty and super athletic. She looks like she could be in the military. No, couldn't be. Like, if that's my biggest gripe about it, I think it's great. I'll just add that I enjoy the sort of the Chekhov's gun, if you will, of them using the
taser,
earlier so that you could get that payoff later. It's funny that as a kid when I read it, it was like, oh, they used the taser and it made the guy keep his hand clamped. So everything, that's so clever. As an adult, you read it and you see it coming a mile away, right?
Yeah,
they set it up.
Yeah, that was on my notes as one of my things too. Is the setup with the taser and the explanation of how it worked in the beginning. I think as a kid, I didn't really think about it that way, that I just, they just tased him, and I didn't think about it actually, cramping up your hand so it wouldn't let you release anything. As an adult though, and who's gotten shocked a few different times, yeah, that's gonna do it. not that I've gotten shocked by a taser.
So many times.
Just I'm a geeky or geeky kind of nerdy kind of guy. So in school, you put a couple wires together, you don't do them right, you get a little shock. I wasn't a kid that was taking the 9-volt and putting it into my tongue. No, I didn't do that.
Yeah, you were.
But that was a good story plot, that tool that they used to come back and go, oh yeah, this is what happens. And I'm glad they did it. Again, it's just really good storytelling done in this particular story.
Definitely. The only thing I'll add, and I'll let you wrap it all up, is I liked, we've mentioned all these 80s movies that sort of feels like it also in league with those movies, or like a Mission Impossible or even a James Bond. I like that high tension all the way to like last second. If they hadn't solved the problem within that next 60 seconds or so, they'd probably get blown out of the sky. So,
that too. You take that too, that grittier end of it, where Lady J puts on the bomb on the door, it blows open, and then the guy that had the bomb strapped on him gets blown out the window, and then you don't see it, but you hear it go kaboom, and then somebody asks you, well, what was that sound? And Flint says, well, it was the guy that had the bombs on him, just got spread out over the sky now. So it's like, wow, they really did that.
Yeah, they did, Pat. It was very 80s in a lot of ways, in a lot of good ways. For those of us who remember the 80s, it might be a little rough for a modern audience, but
yeah,
I don't know. For this old guy, I just really enjoyed that whole Cold War aspect, the Russia U.S. thing, and it was just it's very of its time, but in an interesting and fun G.I. Joe way. That's my final thoughts.
I agree with you too. Makes me excited to start this journey of reading the special missions, knowing some of the issues that I remember, but revisiting the ones that I don't. Just the love for this that I had, and just, man, I was so excited when they started doing special missions. Didn't realize though, like they said at the end, it's a bi-monthly. So that means every 2 months they were putting this out.
The weird thing about bi-monthly is it literally means either every 2 months or twice a month. It can be either one. And I was trying to remember, was this coming out every other month, or was this coming out twice a month? All we really probably have to do is look at the cover.
Yeah, and I I didn't know if it was coming out every 2 and then went to monthly down the road.
Yeah. The first one was October of 86, and the second one was December. So it's every other month is what it's looking like.
Yeah.
Your first instinct was correct, sir. Well done.
All right. Yeah. So again, just was looking forward to have another Joe issue.
I was able to check that quickly because I have them all hardbound here.
I wonder why you'd have that way.
But yes, just good to have more Joe content. According to Jim in the chat, it would eventually go monthly. It was started at an every other month pace, but then it eventually went monthly. And with that, I think it's time to let Kristatos do the combat readiness of the issue.
And for those of you who don't speak military, that means we're going to score this issue's story on the same 1 to 10 flag points scale we used earlier. So, Jarrod, on a 1 to 10, 10 being the best at the top and 1 being the lowest, where do you fall on the story?
Well, this is a really good, much like we covered last episode with the 25-cent Zero adventure of America's Elite. This really falls into that category. Great, strong start. Good standalone story. Kind of gives you a flavor for what you're going to get. It's got Beachhead in it. I think I'm going to land on a 9 on this one.
Okay.
I think this is a 9 out of 10 for me.
I am going to be with you in the camp of 9. If I could do a 9.25, I would, because the cover price of this was $1.25 for this issue. So maybe you pay a little bit more for this one. I can't remember what the cost was back then. Was this a 75 center at the time? I don't know, but because this was a double-sized issue for issue number 50, it was $1.25. So I definitely think you got your $1.25 out of it, this whole issue.
And isn't Flint riding high? Kind of literally, because he gets the cover of issue 50. Literally riding high on a tank.
Yes.
And he's one of the stars of the backup story. So this is a big time for Flint right here.
Yeah, he is the man on this one.
Checking in with the chat, Matt said he'd give it a high 8. He said, I love the self-contained stories. If they would have included the flying Serpentor, it would have got immediate 10 points. I mean, it's in the same issue, technically. But I love it. So we got a strong 8 from Matt on this one. Jim Meal also says that he would give it an 8. He says, knowing the special mission stories coming up, he's going with an 8, which means, man, we've got some good stuff to come.
And now it's time to award this episode's Silver Star Medal or Silver Snake for gallantry in action or sneaky snakitude. This is where we each get to award the character in the issue who went above and beyond the call of duty or sneaky snakiness. Jarrod.
Pat, I'm going to give a Silver Star to Lady J. They all did an amazing job, but Lady J had to be basically the point man or point woman in this case. On this one, she had to put herself out there. She had to mix and blend, and I'm pretty sure she's the one that blew that guy out in the
she's the one that set the
atmosphere. So, yeah, I mean, I want to give it to my boy Beachhead because he's my favorite, and I always want to give it to him, but I have to admit that she did more of the risk-taking than anybody else in the actual taking back of the plane. So I'm giving it to Lady J. What about you?
That is a good person to give it to. That would have been my choice as well. So I'm going to call an audible and give you a backup person that I thought about in this one. And I am going to give it to the chess player. Because he was really smart at what he was doing and thinking about and was kind of actually telling him, hey, you know, I've calculated all this out and you guys aren't going to get away with this, or, you know, things aren't going to go the way you want it to go. And then down the road, you see that his chess stuff got knocked over by one of the terrorists. She lets him pick it up. And when he's down on the floor, he sees Beachhead, you know, giving him the shh. You know, be quiet, because you couldn't see that Beachhead, because Beachhead's got a mask, so he was kind of, you couldn't tell that his lips were doing that, but you could definitely tell by what he was doing. You could tell by his eyes. You seen it in his eyes. Anyway, but he kept quiet, you know what I mean? So he did a good job of kind of helping keep the alertness down. I like that.
I concur, and so does Matt. Matt gave his Silver Star to Beachhead. Matt from the chat, the super secret clandestine chat, patreon.com/LONGBOX CRUSADE. He gave it to Beachhead, and he said he's singing and doing his work because he was singing the Ranger song as he was doing his thing.
Yeah, that's cool. And now I'll go ahead and hand it back over to Jarrod for his segment of Death Probe's Toy Chest.
It's here, the G.I. Joe collection, each sold separately. G.I. Joe from Hasbro.
All right, Pat, in this segment, I take something or someone featured in this issue and give you a brief toy history on it. And for this issue, I have selected the Awe Striker.
Catching Cobra's really tough, you know. And Cobra's up to something that with G.I. Joe.
Cobra! Cobra blew up the bridge. Bridge layer to the rescue. The Awe Striker will catch him.
Introducing the new Joe's Barbecue and Shipwreck.
We're going to stop Cobra this time.
G.I. Joe!
After him! Joe!
G.I. Joe Bridge Layer comes with driver. Awe Striker comes with driver. Other figures and equipment sold separately from Hasbro.
I selected the Awe Striker because literally every character used in this one, I have done a Death Probe's Toy Chest before. So I went with the Awe Striker. The vehicle came out in Series 4 in 1985, and it was discontinued in 1987. Although it was available via mail order without the driver until 1989. The driver, by the way, is Crankcase. The Awe Striker itself is a green two-seater dune buggy type of vehicle with four-wheel suspension. It had a large blaster cannon mounted on the top. It included 2 antennas, a camera, and an engine cover, which were easily broken or misplaced. As of the time of this recording, which is July of 2023, there are currently 6 versions of the Awe Striker. The last appearance was in 2010 when it had a cool black and gold design. So, Awe Striker. Pat, did you have it?
First of all, Jarrod, I just got to say, that was a good vehicle choice.
Yeah.
And no, I did not have it. I didn't have a lot of Joe vehicles. I had more action figures than I had vehicles. But this is one that was always something in my eyes and thoughts of. My neighbors, I talk about a lot, that had a lot of the toys. They did have this one. Very cool toy. I like the Doom Buggy. And I think this is the 80s. Doom Buggies and that were kind of a thing back then as well. And just who wouldn't want this kind of a vehicle with a big gun on it, top of it like that? Just very cool.
I concur. I had this vehicle. I liked it. It was a new ground vehicle. It's very similar to the Vamp, of course. The Vamp and the Vamp Mark II were the ones you had for a while. What I really liked about it was its 4-wheel suspension. I liked the way that felt and to play with it. I'm going to be honest with you, Pat. It's time to re-enter the dark parts of Jarrod's soul. I'm pretty sure this was a Firefly acquisition.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Was that special mission you went on?
That special mission I went on to acquire Firefly. So like you said, my neighbors had past tense.
Yep.
All right, I'm not telling the story again. You guys, listeners, have to figure that one out. Go find where I talked about it before. I think that was an acquisition on a Firefly mission.
Yep. Okay.
Enough about me. Let's go to the chat. Matt from the Super Secret chat says, it's hard for me to get hyped about the Awe Striker. The Vamp was the Joe vehicle for the longest time. I understand. And Vamp loyalty is real,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Vamp is the cooler vehicle of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Clutch is more interesting than Crankcase.
Yeah.
Vamp and the Vamp Mark II, they're both sort of beefier and larger. You kind of fit more guys on it. But I mean, I like the Awe Striker. I thought it was a nice change of pace. Matt in the chat said it got rehomed. Yeah, basically. Jim in the Super Secret chat says he always wanted one as a kid and he has 2 complete ones now. Great all-around, all-weather vehicle. I concur. What a cool vehicle.
All right. Well, next up is our feedback segment called Combat Comms. As always, we want to start off Combat Comms with a roster of our battle-hardened Crusader Club veterans. These are the fine folks that have joined us on our Crusaders Club. They enjoy early access to special LONGBOX video episodes, just like we're doing now, recording a live show just for them. And you later on down the road. But if you're a Crusader Club member and you get all the access, you'll get to hear it live and be part of it. You also get into some free raffle giveaways, voting on show programming, and so much more. So these are the fine folks reaping the benefits and giving some much appreciated support to the show.
And Helica Wolf.
Auburn Elvis.
Bill Beer.
Blast It or Stash It.
Braxton Underwood.
Captain Entropy.
Clinton Robinson.
Dave Collins.
Battle Wagon.
Ezra Gallo.
Gary Viola.
Gene Hendricks.
Gerald Green.
Jason Keene.
Jim Lady.
Jeremy L.
Jim Jarman. I hope you like Jim Jarman too.
Jim Meal in the top secret chat.
Joe Thomas.
John Watson.
Josh Strickland.
Candace Ward.
Kathy Bright, the MVP in the chat, in the secret chat.
Mark Ross, a.k.a. Clark Trent.
Matt and Lizzie Passo.
Secret chat. Maxwell Traver.
Miranda W.
P.D. Devins.
Paul Hicks in the chat, down on the chat.
Rick from Jeff and Rick Present.
Rob Morgan.
Samantha Maney.
Sean Urbanski.
Spidey 67.
Spreadsheet.
Steve Cronin.
Tim Price.
Tony Pennington.
And Toronto Cup. If we missed anybody in our list, we do apologize. Please keep in mind that we recorded these episodes well in advance of release. So if you are a recent addition, we should be adding you soon. But still, no worries. Just let us know that we missed you by sending us an email at contact@longboxcrusade.com, and we'll get it all straightened out. We'll see if Laurel is working in the office building or not. She's going through the paperwork, but don't worry, we'll get to it, and she'll help us out as well, too. So you might be asking yourself, how do I become a Crusaders Club member? And how do I get the secret access? Well, it's simple. You just head on over to patreon.com and search for Longbox Crusade for as little as $1 a month. That's $1. It gets you all this access. And I'm talking all the access to the amazing world of the Crusaders Club. So make sure you come and check it out. As a reminder, we really would appreciate and love to hear from you guys as well with a voicemail. And you can do that by leaving us a voicemail at 707-532-5269. That is 707-532-LBOX.
Pick up the phone. And that will bring us to mission complete status for this episode of G.I. Joe Chronicles. If you'd like to hear more from us in the realm of comic books, action films, vintage TV, movie serials, and more, check out the entire Longbox Crusade Network. DJ Kristatos, where can they find that?
Well, Jarrod, I'm glad you asked. You can find the Longbox Crusade pretty much on all the podcatchers out there. That's right, all the podcatchers out there. Or you can just go to www.longboxcrusade.com. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and at YouTube, all at Longbox Crusade. Be sure to make sure you subscribe and like the YouTube stuff that we're doing. Help us grow this community. Back to you, Jarrod.
If you'd like to chat with us online, we can be found at Pat. Where can you be found?
Well, Jarrod, I am glad you asked. I can be found on the Twitter at Kristatos01. Jarrod, where can you be found at?
I am glad you asked as well. I am at Yard Sale Artist, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Check out my artwares at www.theyardsaleartist.com. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode of G.I. Joe Chronicles. We will see you on the battlefield. Next episode, we will return to our coverage of the 2006 Devil's Due series, G.I. Joe, America's Elite #1, and is called Shock and Awed. Until then, platoon, fall out. Yo, Joe. The music themes for this show are done by musical genius Joe November. Please check out his SoundCloud at Josephline99. That's Joseflin 99. You will not regret it.
Inker, Herb Trimper?
Do you think it's Herb Trimper, or do you think it's just a typo and that Herb Trimpe did his own inks? Like, if you had to guess.
I would think he probably did his own inks.
You're right. It's just a typo. Don't Ron Burgundy me here.
What?
You put it on the teleprompter and Pat's going to read it. I live to serve Matt, so that's why.
And that's again, then you get all the access. See,
all the access when you show up to these recordings.
Matt, you make sure you go tell your friends out there. You just got all the access.
All the access. You were like, I didn't see the picture, and I was like, there's the picture.
Boom. Access granted.